An analysis of Joyce Carol Oates' Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? Joyce Carol Oates was born in 1937. She was a writer from a very young age, writing her first novel at age 15. It was rejected for publication for being too dark. She was very ambitious and did very well in school. Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? Was published while she was in her late 20s, and it helped push her to literary fame. She's written over 37 books and numerous short stories. Oates was inspired to write Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? After having read an account in Life magazine of a charismatic but insecure young man who had enticed and then killed several girls in Tucson, Arizona during the early 1960s. This story was written in 1966. This was a time period of significant social change. While much of this change was for the better, such as movement towards racial and gender equality, some might have been seen as less positive, a much more sexualized culture, and the greater expectation of adolescent rebellion. Oates was very interested in adolescence, especially the psychological and social turmoil that arises during this difficult period. Her preoccupation with these topics, along with her keen sense of the special pressures facing teenagers in contemporary society, is evident within this story. The story's central character, Connie, is a typical teenager who may be disliked, pitied, or even identified with. A similar believability is instilled in Arnold Friend's manipulative stream of conversation and its psychological effects on a vulnerable teenager. Critics also praise the story for its evocative language, its use of symbols, and an ambiguous conclusion which allows for several interpretations of the story's meaning. Oates tries to employ realism in dialogue and in the way that the characters are portrayed. There are, however, some elements that are not in keeping with realism. These are primarily exemplified in the interpretation of Arnold Friend. Some interpret Arnold Friend to be an otherworldly, potentially demonic character. We'll discuss this interpretation within our discussion board. The story is dedicated to Bob Dylan. Oates dedicated this story to Bob Dylan after having heard his song, "It's All Over Now, Baby Blue." The title is also a variation on a lyric from Dylan's song, "A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall." Both songs deal with the loss of innocence. That theme can be reflected in this story by Connie's loss of innocence, which occurs in two phases: her general approach to teenage life and her encounter with Arnold Friend. Oates depicts the main character, Connie, as rather superficial, insincere, and even a little bratty. She'd like to see herself as mature, but this is simply a persona she's testing out. She displays two personalities, one for when she's at home and one for when she's out with her peers. While this depiction of Connie is not necessarily flattering, she still is somewhat sympathetic, especially as her insecurities are revealed in the encounter with Arnold Friend. In this adult persona that Connie tries to adopt, she prides herself as a skilled flirt who has never been in a situation she couldn't handle. She initially feels confident when Arnold Friend arrives at her door while she is alone in the house. "Who the hell are you?" she asks, mistaking him for the kind of boy she frequently attracts. She thinks she can recognize him from the sound of his car's horn, his clothing and physical appearance, and the line of banter he employs. Notice how much of the story revolves around surface appearances. Connie's obsession with self, her interest in boys, her facade of innocence, and even her mother-daughter tension. This theme of superficiality is a significant element of the story. Even though Arnold Friend seems to be casting something of a spell on Connie, at the story's conclusion, her decision to leave her house is apparently her own choice, one of sacrifice for her family. After all, Arnold has suggested that if she continues to refuse, he will kill her whole family. In the end, she feels disembodied, not part of herself. The story seems to be about a strange loss of innocence. Arnold's friend has the ability to bring about the loss of this innocence. One of the reasons this is a well-liked story is that it was one of the first of its time to discuss teenage girls' interest in premarital casual sex that is unrelated to the pretense of romance. It could be that Oates is suggesting that casual sex, or popular culture, is leading to a loss of childhood innocence.